Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Garb August 2023. This is a BookTube event that is now famous, or should I say infamous, created by Ollie at Criminolly. He's assembled a gigantic cast of trashy co-hosts, and we are talking about garbage all throughout the month of August. We're reading it, we're wallowing in it. And in addition to the thematic, analytical, Jesuitical kinds of videos that I'm sure I will make throughout the month, I will also be doing regular trash pickups of trash that I read. I have been setting aside a lot of trash in order to indulge myself this August, and doing what I've been doing all summer long for BookTube events, which is just add an item to whatever BookTube event I'm doing to my night's reading. I do a huge amount of reading once the world quiets down. I do once all the needs, all the obligations are over with. There's no more deadlines. Editors have gone home. The little baby Bean has been taken care of. She has been fed and watered and burped and walked and doesn't need anything more, is going to go to bed for the whole night. Everything else is all quiet and peaceful. All the obligations are done. That's when I settle down to a huge amount of reading. A huge amount. And I add stuff to that reading every night, depending on the whatever BookTube event I'm doing. And so it's been a pleasure to add garbage to that reading pile every night. I haven't kept up trash pickups for everything that I've read, because some trash, as I've tried to go over on this channel, some trash just isn't worth commenting on. Some of it's just bad. And not bad in a fun way. Not bad in a spider sense kind of way, but just bad in a bad way. So that there's nothing to it. There's no reason to talk about it. It's not the good kind of bad. That's what I'm trying to say. Last night I read, I believe this is my first introduction to this author. I think this author was a prolific thriller writer in the UK. And the book read like an oil slick. It left me filthy from head to toe, but I slid right through it. I definitely wouldn't call it bad trash or bad good trash. I definitely would say that it was a waste of time. Because as I've mentioned many times before, there's a skill in getting your reader to turn the pages. The easiest thing in the world that a writer can do is fail at that. You shouldn't overlook that. When you're reading a piece of trash or a piece of anything, and you just can't stop reading, you're eager to keep going, you want to get the whole thing done in one gulp, that's the author. That's not an accident. The author is doing that. And I read one of those books last night, definitely. This is by James Hadley Chase, and it's called The Things Men Do. I think it's from half a century ago. And it opens with a garage mechanic, a professional garage operator named Harry, whose business is struggling. He has only one employee. His wife does the books. He's there every day. It hasn't turned out to be quite the gold mine that he was hoping that it would be, and so he can't turn down any business. So he will go to you if you have car trouble. Especially if you can't move your car. He's not going to ask anything more than that. He does house calls, essentially. And he is driving back to his home. They live over the garage. He's driving back home from one of those visits when he sees a woman on the road having car trouble. So Harry pulls over to offer her assistance, and it turns out that her car is completely fried. It cannot be made to move on its own. So he agrees to give her a lift to town. Her name is Gloria, and even by the dodgy light, it's nighttime, and even by the dodgy dashboard light, you can tell that she's quite lovely. And they start talking. They start a conversation. Harry is a young man. He's in his 30s. He's been to war. He was in World War II with his best friend Bill. They both came out alive. They were both demobilized. They're both trying to make it in the post-war world. And Harry is a little bit reserved, and Gloria is a little bit forthright. She starts to quiz him about his business. He tells her about his garage business and how it's not doing all that well. And she makes a comment during that first conversation that really gets under his skin. It really bothers him. She's sort of disdainful and says, well, there are lots of ways to make money. She herself says that she's a lingerie designer. She says there are lots of ways to make money, and if you're not making money, it's maybe because you don't have enough initiative. It kind of bothers Harry mentally but all the other organs in his body are responding in a quite different way to Gloria, and he drops her off. She promises to do him a good turn. She says, I'll tell all my friends about your shop, and I would also like to store my own car there. And he tries to dissuade her. He says that his place is not a quote-unquote lockup, meaning ordinarily you would store your car somewhere and they would charge you because it's a secure premises, and he can't guarantee that. But she says, if you service it and lock it up overnight, I'm perfectly happy to pay you, even so. He doesn't think anything of it. He doesn't think that she's going to do what she says. But she returns to the shop. I want to read you. I want to read you a bit from the things meant to. Just let's see here. Let me get this all lined up. I should have done this before the video, but if the video weren't trashy, would this really be Garb August? Let's go to the file and find the passage in question. She returns to his garage. Amazingly, he never thought he'd see her again. We have a scene with him and his wife coming up in a second. We're going to have the requisite siren break. Just to warn you ahead of time, I'll be stopping. Harry goes home and he talks with his wife Anne, and they have just their normal evening and whatnot. He can't get Gloria out of his mind, but he doesn't expect that he's going to see her again. And then she does show up at his garage, and we get this piece of deathless prose. Have you ever tampered with a faulty light switch and got a sudden jolt up your arm? That was the feeling I got when she turned, a jolt that went through me and set my heart bumping unevenly and turned my mouth dry. Don't jump to the conclusion that she was a beauty. She wasn't, although her face and figure compelled attention, and any man would look at her twice, maybe 3 times. But there was more to it than that. She had that thing men go for. Call it sex, if you like. It was more than sex. It was an animal sensuality, something right out of the jungle. Okay, all right. Let's get the alluring cover back. She proves as good as her word. She does house her extremely expensive car in his garage, but she also tells him that she has a friend named Dix. And Dix can maybe help Harry. There's a kind of a consignment kind of business opportunity that Dix is willing to let Harry in on. He's willing to let Harry in on the ground floor of that opportunity in exchange for Harry partitioning part of his garage so that Dix and his men can set up a temporary wall and work on things in that location. Miscellaneous mechanical things. And Harry doesn't like the sound of that, but he agrees because they're willing to pay him. Times are tight with him and Anne. They're thinking that they might have to go belly up. So not just Gloria's little pittance of housing her car, but also Dix's offer is something Harry doesn't really feel that he can refuse, even though it seems a little shady, and the people around Dix seem shady as well. Harry goes to meet Dix at Gloria's insistence at a seedy apartment, and all of these seedy people are there, and Dix turns out to be a man mountain. Talk about something straight out of the jungle. If Gloria affects certain southern regions of Harry that way, then Dix affects certain higher up regions that way. He instantly makes Harry's hackles rise. Harry instantly wants to confront him physically. And does. At one point, when he's had too much to drink, he does. And Dix handles him physically like a little baby. Which is kind of an odd thing. I think on some level, James Hadley Chase is thinking that Harry is our hero. Why else would he mention war service? But Dix slaps him around like a small child. Like all of us feel compelled occasionally to slap around a small child. Maybe I should pick my similes more carefully. Dix slaps him around like a small child and laughs through the whole thing. And says, look, kid, now that we've got this clear, I don't want any kind of that nonsense from you again. I'm willing to make you a wealthy man, but you do what I tell you. It's pretty obvious that Dix is a gangster. It's pretty obvious that he and his companions are no good. And if that weren't obvious just from the way they dress and the way they talk and the way that Gloria is obviously a mall of some kind, and obviously she was waiting on that road for Harry. If all of that weren't clear, well, Harry eventually puts two and two together because, like I said, he's best friends with a guy named Bill. They demobilize together, they are in civilian life together, and Bill is a guard for the post office, delivery trucks, and special armored cars, and he happens to have their headquarters right across the street from Harry's garage. So it's not hard to guess that Harry is being played, he's being drawn into this world by the sexual allures of Gloria and by the allure of money. To give a criminal operation an easy vantage point for spying the comings and goings and learning the routine of an armored car depot across the street that is soon going to be carrying a massive cash payload. That is the MacGuffin of the plot, is that there's going to be a massive cash payload. Bill actually drops hints to this to Harry without knowing anything about Harry's new associates. Bill is completely innocent. Harry goes over, actually cases the joint. He also cases that sequestered part of his own garage. He makes a point of looking in on it and is told by Dix's associates to pretty much mind his own business. And he's also persistently, stupidly, unrealistically, continuously infatuated sexually with Gloria, to the point where they actually engage in a little extramarital hanky-panky. And then one of Dix's associates reveals to Harry that it was filmed, and that if he doesn't do what he's told, if he doesn't do exactly what they want him to do in regards to that cash delivery, not only will that film be shown in all the fleshpot cesspits of the world, not only, in other words, will Harry's face become, Anne will learn about it. Anne will learn that she has been horribly, horribly cuckolded. Not only that, but also Dix and his friends know a real good acid thrower. A guy who's really good with pinpoint accuracy throwing vials of acid in the face of people that Dix doesn't like. So they threaten Harry with blackmail and also with disfiguring his wife, with throwing acid in Anne's face. One of Dix's associates actually asks Harry, have you ever seen a dame that's had acid thrown in her face? Pretty picture. As if Harry hasn't read Batman. That's Two-Face that you're talking about. Surely it will be only half the face right now. But Harry agrees, but he's getting more and more angry as time goes on. He's thinking more and more of revenge. And those thoughts crystallize when an attempt is made on the armored car and Bill is killed. That happens offstage. We don't see it. Harry learns about it. And realizes, of course, Dix and his men go on the lam immediately. They run right away. Not just because they've killed a guard, but also because the bags of money were tripwired with paint. Any of you have ever seen, for instance, the Keanu Reeves movie, what's it called? Speed. Where Dennis Hopper's character, the villain, wants to steal money, and when he opens the bags, these packs of gel dye paint explode in his face and all over the money. So it's completely useless. And in this book, Chase says that not only is the money useless, but that the paint doesn't wash off. So Dix has a bright blue face and can't leave the country. He can't get out of the country by any popular public means of entry or exit, because every police officer in the country is going to know, be on the lookout for a gigantic guy with a blue paint on his faces. So he and his associates go to the country. They go on the lam to this hideout in the country and have left Harry with the bag. Anne knows that something is horribly wrong. Harry knows that Anne knows. The police know that something is wrong. Harry is going to go down for all of this. He has the location across the street. He was in the building across the street casing the joint. He questioned his friend about the timetables of the delivery and what that was all going to be. Harry knows that he has no future. The police are going to find him. There's a tense sequence in the book. All the sequences in the book are tense. Okay, just to get that over with. This is like 90 pages soaking wet, and you won't let a breath out the whole time. There's a tense sequence where Harry actually has to hide, has to elude police capture. He trails them to their country hideout, and he has murder on his mind. I want to read you another. I'm ready now with my other text. So I want to read you another passage here, because Harry undergoes a Rambo kind of moment. He's been a normal civilian, but when he was in the war, he and Bill were at the front of trouble. If there was a nest of enemy soldiers suspected to be up around the bend, they went first. And they weren't going there to reconnoiter. They were going there to kill people. The racial epithet for Japanese people is used throughout this book. The racial epithet for Chinese people is used throughout this book. I was kind of amazed we didn't make a whole UN of it. I don't think I ever saw the racial epithet for black people in this book, but I wouldn't have been surprised if it had been there. You just have to remember, right, with effective trash, you just have to remember that we've grown more conscious of such things and how unconsciously insulting they can be. I don't doubt that James Hadley Chase, I don't suspect him of being a racist at all. I think these were just the terms that you used at the time. But those were the things that Bill and Harry did during the war. They were not telegraph operators. They were killers. And Harry has a Rambo moment when he realizes that this guy Dix has ruined his whole life without even caring about him. He has a Rambo moment, and we're told, I wasn't soft any longer. I wanted to kill Dix. Nothing less would satisfy me. He got me into this trap. He was going to send that film throughout the poison spots of the world for degenerates to snigger at. He was forcing me to put Bill into danger. He had threatened to throw acid at Anne. By these 4 things, he had given me the right to take his life. So he goes to the house. He figures out where these bad guys are going, and he goes there. Not openly, because there's a lot of them and only one of him. But he has a gun, and he hides in the shrubbery and in the backyard and in the field across the street to reconnoiter the place and see who's there and what they're waiting for. It turns out they are waiting for a friend they know with a private plane. It's pretty much the only way that Dix could get out of the country, since he's bright blue. And Harry knows that if he's going to get his revenge, he has to do it before that plane shows up and lands in the field across the street. But he's waiting for his opportunity. And before he can get his opportunity, Gloria shows up. The 2 henchmen, Dix's 2 henchmen are there already, and she tells them not only is he bright blue from the money dye, but it also got in his eyes, so he's practically blind. He's helpless. So he's here. She's going to take him into the house and rest and maybe see if they can somehow clean his eyes at least so that he can see. And while he's in there, she talks with his 2 henchmen and starts to make them think, well, we have all this money. If he's not around, I mean, he's a burden now. He's marked. He's blind. If he's not around, we split it 3 ways instead of 4. And he can't defend himself. Or he's a crack shot with a gun, but he can't defend himself if he can't see you. Might be a no better opportunity. And the 2 henchmen sort of think about it, and she says, I'll go in and lead him out to the slaughter. And Harry's watching all of this. And she leads Dix out. And these 2 guys approach him, but it turns out she was lying. Dix has his eyesight perfectly fine. She wanted to see whether or not they would turn on him, and also the money split 2 ways instead of 4 suits her right down to the ground. Dix kills them both. Very graphically described. And then, while Harry is watching, he's watching all of this, while Harry is watching, Dix comes to the conclusion, he might be huge, but he can do basic math, he comes to the conclusion that the money split 1 way instead of 2 ways would be even better. And he kills Gloria. Strangles her to death, with her clawing at his hands and arms, fighting the whole time. He doesn't bother to shoot her. He strangles her to death while Harry is watching. And the novel ends, and keep in mind, I will put in the title of the video that this is a spoiler review. Although I don't. This is a 60-year-old James Hadley Chase thriller. Is this guy even in print anymore? I don't know that I need to worry about spoiling books. But I want to talk about the whole thing. I'm never going to talk about this book again. I'm never going to read it again. Although I may read this author again. Harry is watching all of this. He watches when he was outnumbered. Okay, fine. So you're waiting in the tall grass and you're outnumbered. But he's not outnumbered anymore. It's him and Dix. They both have guns. Gloria doesn't have a gun, despite the cover here. Gloria doesn't have a gun. And, Harry can't be 100% sure that she would shoot him anyway. And even though that's true, he stays there in the shrubbery while this guy strangles to death the only woman in the book, aside from his wife. And then the novel ends with Harry standing up and approaching Dix. They both got guns, but Dix is caught by surprise. Harry has the drop on him, and that's it. That's the end of the book. The book ends on a cliffhanger from which there will be no sequel. There is no sequel to this book. Which at first I thought, oh, that's rotten. Then I thought, well, that fits the bill for this author. Because you don't want to stop at all, in the slightest, to the very last paragraph. And it turns out the author's way of getting you to the very last paragraph is to avoid giving you any kind of conclusion. You don't know what's going to happen to Harry. Is he going to kill Dix? And if he does, what's going to happen to his life? Is he ever going to see Anne again? Is he ever going to explain any of this to the police? Everyone who was involved in it is dead. Bill is dead. The two henchmen are dead. Dix is dead. Gloria is dead. But surely there's enough circumstantial evidence for him to convince the police that he wasn't directly involved, that it wasn't his idea. Surely that is the case. But we'll never know. We'll never know. Chase just ends the book there. And there are a few things that I want to point out here. This is full of one-sentence paragraphs. It's full of lazy slang. That pacing really comes at a cost. But one impression that I got throughout this book that I could not get rid of. I don't know anything about this author, but I have the feeling he was a roaring a-hole. And a snob. And you might think that's a contradiction, because I think this guy made his living writing thrillers, just like this one. Exactly like this one. You might think that that's a contradiction, but it's not. You look at a lot of thriller writers, especially writers who made it really big, we're talking Summer House on the Shore, levels of money, from writing thrillers, a lot of them are awful snobs. Fox hunting, the opera, a monocle, that sort of thing. That snobbery is born of the fact that they hate their readers. They hate the people who have lifted them up to financial success. They've always thought, what I really want to do is direct. They're essentially, you could trace this all the way back to Arthur Conan Doyle, who had a huge best-selling hit with his schlock character Sherlock Holmes, but really wanted to write other things. I really wanted to write more serious things. You could make the same case for Bram Stoker. I think it's in the DNA of cheap, easy thrillers like this. And when I say easy, I mean not only easy to read, but easy to write. I would be amazed if this took more than 2 weeks to write this book. It's not long, but I would be amazed if it took more than 2 weeks. If you're not going to resolve anything and you're going to kill everybody, then how hard can it be to write the book, for Pete's sake? You don't have to worry about long-term complications of anything. If it's straight out of the fifth act of Hamlet and everybody's going to die, then what difference does it make? I don't think this took very long to write. And that was one impression I got. And I think it was written in contempt of its readers. That's another impression that I got. I don't think I would like this author if I met him. I'm assuming that James Hadley Chase is dead, long dead. But I don't think I would like him if I met him. I don't think I'd like to read interviews with him if he ever gave them. And maybe this is a pen name. I don't know. But I definitely got that impression. But there's another impression that I got. Maybe it's connected to the first one. When I finished with the book, I just went, what? 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 You're not gonna, but what about? You just have to resist asking questions like that because you're not going to get any answers from this book. You're going to get an absolutely hypnotic hour of reading. Absolutely hypnotic. I don't think there's an adverb anywhere in this thing. You will slide right through this. But that's all you're going to get. Not going to get anything else. And, some of the stench of that oil spill bothered me when I was done. Because, what's the best way to put this? Okay, the best way to put this is that the title is wrong. These are not the things men do. These are the things that bad men do, that weak men do. I don't care how many Japanese soldiers Harry killed during the war. He's a bad, weak man. His friend, Bill, is not. He's neither bad nor weak, and he dies for his pains. But Harry doesn't do anything in the course of this book that any good person would do. You don't cheat on your wife. You don't lie to her about cheating on her. You don't, when she finally knows and confronts you, sort of hint that it's her fault for being so plain. and maybe not making the most exciting sandwiches. You certainly don't sleep around with her. You don't get into business with the mob, no matter what, especially once you know what they are. You don't go sneaking around in your friend's workplace to learn the lay of the land when you could go to the police. Harry encounters these moral qualms a couple of times in the book and just assumes, well, the police couldn't protect him or Anne. They would have to move. They would have to, uproot and go somewhere else. And apparently, sinking to the level of crime is worth avoiding that. And then there's the ending. I mean, honestly, you strip away all the rest of this, there's still the ending. He lays there in the shrubbery, watching a woman get strangled to death. And James Hadley Chase makes it clear that Gloria doesn't die slowly. He doesn't do anything. No firing shot in the air. He doesn't shoot Dix from behind. It's either Harry wants Gloria to be dead, when he's only told us that he wants Dix to be dead. Either he wants Gloria to be dead, or he just doesn't like his chances while Dix's blood is up or whatever. Either way, that's... If James Hadley Chase ever actually did think of Harry as the hero of this book, he was dead wrong. This is a villain. This is a bad guy, a weak character. He's as bad as any other character in the book. So that's your trash pickup for today. The Things Men Do by James Hadley Chase. I want to stress that this was a huge amount of fun to read. This was mesmerizing the way that only trash can be. So I may very well revisit this author in the course of the month. I'm largely leaving it up to chance. We'll see what calls to me tonight. But I will do another trash pickup tomorrow or this week. You never know. I can't tell for sure that there'll be a trash pickup tomorrow because there could be more mud fighting. There was mud fighting in the world of Garbogus the day before yesterday, and it led to a video about whether or not Jaws, the novel, is trash that I'm still getting dozens of emails about. So that was great. All those conversations are lots of fun. We're all calling each other dumb bricks. Oh, no, you're stupid. The movie's better. Oh, no, you're as stupid as can be. The book's better. I think it's only right that the hog-fighting, mudslinging of Garbogus should expand to envelop the viewers as well. So I might get struck with one of those again, but in the meantime, this is my first trash pickup of the month. It's the month of Garbogus is off to a particularly trashy start. So I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.